You wanted me to promote him, so I'm here now.
Come to the garage.
Hey, what's up, man?
If you don't mind, I'm just gonna have you come into the garage.
It's nice to meet you, man.
Nice to meet you too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah, you said you got kids in the area?
In the area, and
Or like here, you know?
well, yeah, I have three kids. Yes.
Cool.
They're not here now.
Oh, okay.
They're not here now. Yeah, there'd be no way we'd be able to do this if the kids were here.
Cool.
So
yeah, maybe we can share out the studio you got here.
yeah, come on in. Do you want anything to drink? Water, coffee?
Water may be fine, actually.
Okay. Yeah, water. Like I said, if you want anything, let me know.
Also, this is my first time like going someplace and like meeting someone in person on behalf of the Trombone channel.
Okay.
Actually, because before I've been like just doing like Zoom interviews, and like now that the pandemic has mostly waned off, I guess. Yeah, I guess we're all good to go in person and all that.
Yeah, I'm totally fine to have people over here. So yeah, water if you want it. Here you can follow me. So I have the lights.
Yeah, sure.
Turned off in the living room if I'm not using it, but
What's your cat's name?
the cat's name is Raya.
Ryan.
The kid's name there from after the movie, Raya and the Last Dragon.
Oh, really? Yeah, I actually saw that movie. It's
So
actually, I actually
very
saw it. It's actually really good. Actually, I really liked it.
Yeah, I enjoyed it as well. So this is
Oh my goodness.
the current studio as it is at the moment. I was in my other room and decided to move everything in here to give the kids a playroom. So what was my studio is now the kids' playroom. But
So they stole it from you, basically.
I let them have it just because I didn't need all the space that was in there.
Yeah.
For it's plenty of space for me to have a student here, and I have a few students that come to my place, but I still do a bunch of lessons over Zoom, so I have kind of the camera set up here ready for that.
Yeah.
There's a big green screen back there you can see.
Oh yeah.
That I set that up kind of right here, so
Everything kind of fits snugly, basically.
everything works well, and I do my audio editing, video editing here as well, and I have my little mobile recording rig that I take with me. So if I do any mobile shoots, like I might be going to the jazz showcase on Monday to record somebody, so I have a few GoPros that I bring with me, have an interface and an extra ADAT4, so I can do 16 channels, and then all the microphones that I use are all kind of down there.
What's your like go-to trombone like? What's your like favorite trombone you play here?
My favorite trombone, it's kind of hard to tell because I use them all every day. As far as practicing, the most work that I do is on this one right here, which is the 897 Yamaha with a 500 bore slide. So that's the one that I use. So the standard horn comes with I forget the exact numbers. I think 480, 482, 480, 490. It's a dual bore setup.
That's a tiny bore there.
Yeah, but they also offer it as with the 500 bore, which is what I have here. Mm-hmm. So that's the one. That's the one I like to use, and I got one of the carbon fiber Butler slides for it, which is great.
I've seen it on Facebook, and I've never seen like in person a carbon fiber slide before. I mean, I think that's really cool. Actually, do you like it?
Yeah, it hardly weighs anything. It took a little bit of getting used to, but not that much, to be honest. The trickiest thing is keeping it smooth because it doesn't weigh anything, but carbon fiber and water don't mix. So if it gets too much moisture inside, like you do on every slide anyway, it tends to slow down. So kind of figuring out the right combination of what to use, which I think the Burt BioLube, a little bit of that, and then I have to swab it every so often, but it works really, really well.
So do you use the Yamaha slide
stuff? I do with that as well, a little bit. So I put a little bit of it's kind of a two-step process, put a little bit of the lube on a swab out the inner, this slide with that, so it kind of puts the BioLube on the outer slide. Mm-hmm. And then I use a little bit of the Yamaha on the outer slide, and it works for about a week and a half really, really well without having to do much to it.
Talk to me about the Resonance Mouthpiece.
Yes, so that's a company that's based out of Italy. So I'm a friend that I met, now a friend that I met through somebody, a trumpet player that I know in Chicago that, can't remember actually how he found them, but he was looking for a mouthpiece maker and found somebody in Italy and kind of became friends and helped some trumpet stuff and mouthpiece stuff, and then he hooked me up with them. So we kind of worked together to develop a small shank trombone. Like he already had symphonic large shank trombone stuff as far as bass trombone, but we kind of worked together to develop a small shank trombone line. So that's what I have on.
Yeah,
this one right here.
Yeah, I have to say, like, they kind of came out of nowhere, and like everyone started playing them, and everyone loved them all of a sudden. Basically,
it's kind of what happened. So he sent me a bunch of test pieces here to check out, and the final prototype, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I had the first, I think, 5 or 6 players that I know that came out to try them ended up buying one.
Wow.
And then there's been more options. So this was 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And since then, there's been more options and different things that Antonio has kind of come up with. But they're great pieces, and I just had somebody email me today about checking one of the large bore or the symphonic line out and some bass trombone stuff. So yeah, they're doing really well. There's a bunch of players in Chicago that are using them, and kind of all over the place. Just like but it's a mouthpiece, just like anything else. It works for some people, doesn't work for somebody else.
Exactly. And is this screw bell thing something you made to it, or is this a Yamaha like what Yamaha did, Or...
They did it for me. It's something that I wanted to do, and I reached out to the product manager that I know, that's kind of my go-to person, and asked them if that's something they would be willing to do. He said, I don't know. So let me ask. So he sent an email out to one of the designers, and they hadn't done it before, and there were a couple of other people that were asking about it. So they kind of made a decision. Yeah, let's do it. And so they developed a ring, which they sell as a standard. So now now that's an option that you can purchase one of the Yamaha horns with a screw bell on it.
Would you say it becomes useful for like traveling, or like is it like having a screw bell like makes you play a little differently?
Yeah,
sorry.
No, you're fine. I'm not worried about it. I'll take it for you.
Yeah.
The reason I did it is for traveling purposes, basically, just to have something smaller. And I was doing a little bit more pre-COVID, a little bit more traveling too. On the flying, just different. Now a little bit less, but it does obviously it does change the sound. And if anytime you put any weight on the instrument, if you take the counter array off, it's going to be a little bit different.
Yeah.
It's not everybody can feel that, but most players can. They'll feel a difference in response. So obviously, if you cut the bell in half and put a ring on it, it's going to change something.
Yeah.
It tends to focus the sound a little bit, so maybe it resonates less as far as what you feel. But for me, I don't notice a difference now necessarily. Unless if I went to play a standard bell, I would feel a difference, but it's not a negative thing. It was for portability more than anything else, and maybe it'll focus the sound a little bit more, but that's doesn't necessarily change it to the point where everybody's like, oh, your sounds completely different.
Awesome.
So, and the case that I have for it, if you can see, it's tiny. So it's basically what I use.
It's really tiny. I mean, it's like I look at that, I'm like, that's too small for a trombone. But
right.
But when you take that apart, it actually fits.
Yeah, it fits well, and I can fit a plunger in here, and all the stuff that I use fits in here. And I actually, to the point where I like this case so much that I bought a second one, and they also weren't very expensive. I think it was maybe $90, $100 for a trombone case. That's not much at all.
No, because I've seen like cases go for like thousands of dollars or something.
Right. There are cases, particularly ones now with the new lines of kind of screw bell trombones, that'll $600-700, which is really expensive. You can buy used professional trombone for that amount of money.
Yeah.
But they are well made, so players will buy them, which is great. I mean, there's always a market for it. The gentleman that used to sell these, Roy Lawler, makes Lawler trombones. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's also a really good trombone maker. Forget where he lives, but he's a one-man operation, so he makes trombones himself. And they're great horns. I play those as well. So he had, for his cut bell trombones, these cases, and then decided to go with a different design. So the company that was making these, once they get a new design, they delete the old file. Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay, so do you have any more of these cases? I want to buy an extra one just in case something happens. Because if the zipper breaks or something where it becomes I can't repair it, I want to have a backup. But I don't think anything's going to happen to it.
So when was the last time you flew with the trombone and like an overhead?
It's been a few years now. It's pre-COVID. It's been a few years, but with that there was no issue. I mean, it'll fit anywhere.
Do you see yourself using that in the near future now that COVID is again mostly waned, or?
Yeah, if I go anywhere, of course.
I'll bring it with plans to go anywhere?
No, at the moment I don't have any plans. And too, with the family with 3 kids here, I don't do as much of that as I used to, or as I would even want to. I kind of, Chicago and the area is my home base. So if I go anywhere for a weekend, for a couple nights, that's a different story. Mm-hmm. But doing a tour or something, a week or like that's with the family here, I just don't want to do that. I don't want to leave for that long.
Yeah, so when was the last time you traveled to play?
I'm trying to remember the last time I went anywhere for a longer performance. It might have been a festival in Bismarck. And this must have been a few years ago, actually. I can't remember exactly where it was, but I flew out there for a few days, which was a lot of fun. But again, that's not something that I see myself doing much of in the future anyway.
Awesome.
So I like having a home base of operations. That's always something I wanted. The longest tour I ever did was about a month, I think, with the Harry James Orchestra, the Harry James Gospel, which was a lot of fun. And that was when I first got to Chicago. But after that, it's like, I don't really want to be away for that long.
Okay.
And there's plenty of work here for everybody.
Yeah, and I'm seeing you got several trombones. You got your.
So I have.
Are they all Yamahas?
Everything here is a Yamaha. I'm kind of, I'm a company person, so to speak.
Really?
I like their instruments. And so this is the one.
So you signed a contract and you can't play anything else but Yamaha.
Oh, that's not true. I can, if I wanted to play something different, I could, but I don't find the need to do that really. So everything I found plays well. So that's my the one I work on usually the most. Yep. But I teach bass trombone, I teach euphonium, I teach tuba, so I have to practice them all regularly anyway. And I've been doing a little bit more theater work lately, so that's, again, kind of any one of these comes into play. And oftentimes it's bass trombone and like a medium or large tenor.
Yeah,
and maybe euphonium and tuba as well. But so at least 2 or 3 of these I'll have to bring with me. So all of them have to be in ready to go shape. So to speak.
So if you're stuck in an only have to pick one instrument, obviously it'd be this little jazz trombone right here. But since one person said the more tools in your belt, the more work you can do. You have to essentially familiarize yourself with tenor, bass, euphonium, tuba, and that way you can have more stuff to do in the field. Basically.
Exactly. It is difficult for anybody to make a living just doing one specific thing. Mm-hmm. It's not impossible, and there are players that do that, but it is certainly easier if you're able to do more things.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's fun for me too. I like playing bass trombone and euphonium and tuba, all those instruments. Before you came here, for about 30, 45 minutes, I was actually warming up on euphonium. Nice. So anything I do on one makes me better on the other one.
Nice.
That makes sense.
So, does it ever become a challenge to, double or quintuple on all these instruments,
The challenging thing is finding time to make sure that all of them stay where I can show up and I know I can play. If I have to sight read something and something, where when I don't have the music ahead of time, I can't practice it, that I can sit down and do it. Mm-hmm. So that's, I'm going to grab her so she doesn't, because once you get up there, things are going to start flying off. Time management is always the tricky thing, and with all the audio stuff I do on top of that, kind of making sure that I have time to breathe and and spend time with the family and all those things as well.
Yeah, so maybe a brief overview of the audio and sound equipment you got here, or
sure. So, and this all kind of started, with COVID, as we all learned.
So before COVID, you had nothing. And
I had the computer. I had speakers that weren't these particular ones, but I had a setup where I didn't have to necessarily purchase everything. But just over a period of the last few years, I started getting a green screen, a couple GoPros I had already, but I decided that's something I've always wanted to do.
Yeah.
As I like making other people sound good, so recording live performances, which is usually or specifically what I do. So I kind of got into that little by little, learn how to use Final Cut, how to use Logic, and all those things. So, yeah, it took a little bit of time, but as with anything, that if you like doing it, you gotta you gotta do it well, ideally. And as a musician, I think that I at least have the ear to kind of be able to hear what I want,
exactly.
What I want to get out of a project. But so I have an Apollo 8-channel interface, which is great, and the 8 Audient, I forget the exact model number that I just got more recently to expand a little bit. A couple of head monitor or speakers, which are fantastic. I wanted something specifically with a front-facing bass port, just because of the space I'm in, to not have too many. And this isn't an ideal space by any means. And having speakers right by a window again is not something you really want to have to do. But the plan is, and I'll show you later, there's a little shed back behind our house that used to be a detached garage that I'm going to try to convert into a studio. That's the goal.
You're going to keep moving around.
So I'm going to move everything there. It's easier for teaching too when the kids are running around. It gets to be quite noisy.
Yeah.
And oftentimes you can hear it through the mic.
Yeah, I gotcha.
So that's the main. But that's a little project. So hopefully that'll happen.
Excuse
me, in the near future.
So you buy all this equipment for the pandemic related like era of like educating and teaching and in the brass and all that. Did it actually become useful, or did you realize, oh, I didn't need to buy all this because I never ended up needing it? You know,
it became useful because now I'm doing something with it. Right, I'll record tracks. Yeah, I've recorded things for my YouTube channel as far as practice tracks, things like that. I've started doing beginning like trombone basic videos, which I really with all the students that I teach of all levels, professionals, but I enjoy teaching beginners, just because I want to make sure that they get as good of a start as they can, and not even as far as reading music, but just the mechanics of the instrument, which oftentimes tend to be overlooked as far as how to produce a good sound and make sure that from the very beginning they get that. And I still teach Zoom lessons. I do that. I have about 5 or 6 Zoom lessons still, and every so often I still get a student that wants to do Zoom lessons, or if I teach a lesson for somebody that's done lessons for people in Europe, things like that.
Wow.
Which again is great. I have everything that I need: camera, microphones. I use it for lessons, for recording myself, and for taking things on mobile recording projects.
I see.
So
cool.
so everything gets used. Not all the time, but it does get used. So like that was the idea. Whatever I purchased wasn't just for me, but for me to be able to do something else with it.
Yeah. Saw on your website had a number of different microphones, most of which are ribbons and like one condenser. But like, is there like one microphone that's like your go-to microphone that like you use all the time because it just works and you like it and all that? Or
yeah, the one that I like to use for myself is an R44. Usually, if you go to a studio, oftentimes that's what you'll see. You'll see a ribbon with a condenser for
with the condenser. That's interesting.
You get a little bit of the warmth of the ribbon and then the kind of brightness of the condenser. You mix it together and you get kind of a pretty accurate representation of sound.
That's interesting. Yeah, well, I never thought of that before.
But this is the one that most trombone players and trumpet players as well like to use. So if they'll purchase one mic for themselves, oftentimes it'll be this one. That's
interesting because like I never thought that like you'd use 2 microphones for one sound. Like I find it interesting because like I would always think like, oh, people have like a microphone for this, a microphone for that. But no, what you're saying is like you have 2 different microphones for one thing. I'm like, that's interesting. You know, like mixing and like finding out what works best and all that. Like I never thought of that. I think that's really cool, actually.
Yeah, it works really well, and that's not something I knew until I went to a recording studio and said, oh, you have a condenser and a ribbon, and then you blend the sound. And now because I'm doing that a lot here and out in the field when I'm listening to recordings, it's easier to pick up, oh, that sounds like that's not just a ribbon, that sounds like there's a condenser, because you can hear some of that kind of condenser sound.
Yeah.
And
awesome.
So what do you have?
So a company sent this to me for free so that it could be promoted.
Okay.
The company is called Tech Zone Audios, or TZ Audios for short, and they initially said, hey, let's test out this the TZ, the X2, and then when I sent them the PayPal information, they said, here's $250, buy the X3, which is $350, and we will give you a discount that will bring it back down $100, and then I bought it, basically. I'm like,
okay.
That's really crazy, honestly, because, like, I'm not the trombonist that's really good like you are. I'm just promoting other people here and there, basically.
Well, it is your channel, so that's you are the person that's doing all that.
Right.
So that's where this is going to end up. It's going to end up on your channel,
right?
Not on my channel. So that's
right. Exactly. Yeah. I mean,
that makes perfect sense.
Right. I mean, unless you want to buy it for $350.
Right. Right. So and I'm not familiar with the company, but if you want to, we can hook it up and I can record and play into it. And
absolutely. And like maybe
one
thing I could definitely use out of it is just like narrating stuff, because I think people say like condensers are also good for recording a voiceover or something like that.
They work really well. Ribbon mics do that as well as condensers, and that's what I use for my vocal mic.
Is there a case for a trombonist to buy a condenser microphone at all, or would you rather tell them get a ribbon mic because that's what everyone uses?
I would suggest that if for recording, that's where you go first. Just get a ribbon mic, because that's going to get you a really good sound, and that's what most players do. And you can find, if you want to get a decent one, between $500 to $1,000, somewhere in that range. You can find a used one. A lot of things that I got here are also used, just because you find a good deal on something and you buy it, if it's something that you need. So a ribbon mic, the 84 is the one I always suggest first, but there are a bunch of other options as well.
Mm-hmm.
And also making sure that whatever interface you're using has enough gain to get the best out of that mic.
Right, because all condensers need phantom power.
Condensers need phantom power, but with the ribbons, depending on, some do use phantom power. Those particular ones do not, and require a good amount of gain to make sure that you're getting a good sound.
Yeah.
So getting a $1,000 mic, putting it into a $200 interface doesn't get you the results you want usually. I
see. Cool. Because when they offered me this, I'm like, sure, I'll get it. And at first I thought it was a scam. And I'm like, someone else in the company, is this legit? And no one's saying it. I'm like, all right, I guess I'll see if it's legit. And it was, actually, which is really cool.
Well, whenever somebody wants to give you something for free, it's always the first kind of red. It's like, why? Why? If you don't know who they are, that's,
Right. But also, it's almost like you almost don't want to ask why, but at the same time it's like, sure, I'll take it because if you ask why, they're gonna be like, because we want to give this for free. You know what? Never mind. We'll ask someone else. I don't know. Peter Steiner could have gotten this. You could have gotten this. James Markey could have gotten this. I don't know, but I just find it weird that I'm the one who got this basically. So
I'm not putting anything on it. No, there's nothing on it. No.
Yeah, I mean,
nothing. No inserts. Nothing like that.
When I talked into it, two things I found was having the low cut or the high pass.
The high pass, yeah.
And also, I had to buy a Scarlett interface, the 2-in-2 version.
Yeah, that's the one that people buy most often.
Yeah. I mean, it looks good and it works great actually. There's this air setting that increases presence, and that works as well basically. So those are the two things I do. But yeah.
Yeah, I could play. I mean, I don't know if you need 5 minutes. That's a lot of trombone.
It is. I mean, I think maybe just
I'll play a couple things just to see what the level is going to be before anything happens. Make sure that's done.
Yeah, sure. Impressions or not yet, or
it's
you can be as biased or as
it's got that condenser sound.
Yeah,
that's what it has, and so you're hearing a bit more of the high end. You're hearing kind of that airiness. You're hearing a little bit more of that, which again, that's for my ears. That's not indicative of what a trombone sounds like. You need a little bit of the warmth of the low. You need a little bit of both. So, but it depends. It depends on who you're talking to. Everybody's got a different idea of what they want to hear.
Yeah.
And also for different recording projects. If you're doing something other than an acoustic or jazz music, you might want something like that.
Yeah.
You might want something for more of a rock or funk section, something where you want more bite, more presence. But you can, again, if you have a ribbon and a condenser side by side, you can kind of figure out what sound you want more. But that's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing that kind of condenser sound coming from, which is not good or bad. It's just what it is, right? And you can get, if you know what you're doing, you can get a mic like that and submit a track to somebody, it'll be just fine.
Yeah, I see. Maybe just a minute of music with just this before we do that, or
sure. So you want me to just play a little bit more into it, or what?
Yeah, and maybe not a scale, but actual music.
Right. Well, hey, we can have a debate of whether a scale is music or not, but that's where it all comes from.
Oh yeah, right. You're just gonna passively roast me all this whole time.
Hey,
music, scales are music. I'm like,
right. Well, that's if one of the things of what one of my teachers. Luis Bonilla, I don't know if you know who he is.
No.
A fantastic trombone player. Used to work play with the Vanguard Jazz Orchestra. I mean, tons of work in New York. One of the most well-known trombone players. I think he moved out. He's out in Graz now in Austria, and so he has a jazz club. And he runs scales and arpeggios was one of the first things. But yeah, I can definitely play something else. That whenever I'm checking out any new equipment, that's the first thing I play. Just it gives me a good reference point of what everything is.
Yeah,
and then I get an idea. Because, it's like when you're testing a mouthpiece, when you're testing a trombone or something, if you go right to playing either tons of notes or just a lot of different things, you don't always get a good idea of how different registers sound, how everything works.
Yeah.
So the simplest thing is usually going to work the best to start with, and then you can just do whatever you want after that.
Because I don't know if you've seen Keith Hilson, the Schmidt trombone.
I do. I know. Yeah. I've known Keith for a while. Actually, some of the cases that I have are from his shop, from Schmidt Music.
Interesting. Because something again, when he always tests different trombones and mouthpieces, he always like you said, starts with a scale, simple and if you have enough attachment, play low D in addition, that kind of thing, really.
Just test out all the different things, and then you can go play a piece of music, play something, whatever it is you want to play, and you get a good idea. But yeah, don't keep throwing. Is one of the things that he has that some other musicians that work in stores don't have is the ability to play the instrument really well. So you can you can test out all the trombones, and he knows so much about the different instruments, but he can also play them really well, which helps.
Right, exactly.
Having the knowledge without the ability to play sometimes doesn't work. So awesome. and I also trust a player more than anybody else when it comes to equipment.
Who's like, here's a nice trombone. People have said nice things about it, therefore you will like it.
Right, and I've dealt with people that are the shop owners or they sell trombones, and the way they describe things, that didn't make sense. That doesn't sound like a player wouldn't say that. But again, so that's Keith is great for because he can play the instrument really well.
Yeah,
and then talk and knows exactly all the details. All right, so I'll just
let's hear some music.
Music.
Yeah.
I don't know what we'll see what comes out. Right?
Yeah, sure.
Rattle. That's not tight enough. That's what happened there.
You're the real deal, man. That was epic. I mean, did you like that?
Those are scales.
Awesome. Those are scales? What? What do you mean there were scales?
There's scales, variants of scales and sounds and music.
I thought we weren't doing scales anymore. Come on, man. Anyway.
Everything, and that's, bebop scales. There's a lot of stuff. I don't know if that's something you're familiar with.
I am not a jazz person at all.
That's a lot of what I work on, for language, in addition to many other things, like listening to recordings and transcribing, which I don't do as often anymore, but I still like to do. I just transcribed Diane Reeves. I don't know if you know her, great vocalist.
Sorry.
She has a beautiful recording of Social Call, which is, I think, from a CD from 2008. It's not recent, but it was on the radio, and I'm listening to her rendition of the tune. It's like, I have to figure this out. I have to transcribe it, which is, for musicians, I think, other than transcribing your instrument, trombone, or even a different instrument like trumpet or saxophone or piano, whatever it's kind of possible, transcribing vocalists, because that's ultimately what I want to do. I think what a lot of people want to do is they want to be able to sing through their instrument. So why not transcribe a vocalist?
And you're doing that right now. You were doing that. Was amazing.
So that's kind of the idea behind that. I like doing that kind of thing. I like transcribing vocalists.
Yeah, I can definitely. Yeah, maybe afterwards you can throw us in the Google Drive and share with me, and I'll replace his sound with that sound with when you were playing basically, but yeah.
Oh yeah, that's fine. Yep. Oh yeah. Let me just stop that.
Save it. Save
Yep.
it.
Oh yeah. It'll be.
Yeah.
I just saved it. Yeah. It's already. Yeah. As long as I don't. I just. Yeah. So that's again. That's a good. It's a condenser mic. That's what it sounds like. So it's. I don't want to say anything negative because there really isn't anything negative to say.
Mm-hmm.
If I paired that with a ribbon, I would probably get exactly what I'm looking for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. I guess we can probably take that. We can probably take your word for it, obviously, basically, because you know people and they know how stuff works with basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
for talking, it'd be great too. That's what I would. Yeah. If you're going to be using that on your channel, that's a perfect mic for that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I almost like. It's like when you get free stuff, it's like, oh, I could sell this for that amount of money and get myself free stuff.
And you wouldn't be the first person to have that thought.
Probably. No, obviously, because and then I get it, and I talk to her, I'm like, this sounds fucking amazing, you know? And I'm like, I'm not getting rid of this. This is awesome. This is totally an upgrade from what I already have, which is the Shure MV7, which you can hook up by USB or XLR. But and people always say, oh, don't use USB, use XLR. I'm like, but it works without the interface, and that's kind of what I did for like almost a year and a half.
And I think that's why they came up with that. I remember when that microphone came out, which was recent, within the last year or so.
It's like a budget alternative to the
SM7B.
Yes.
That's the one which I actually had for a while, and I was using that as my talking mic here for lessons. I was using that, and it sounded really good. The only reason
the Joe Rogan mic, basically.
Yeah, the only reason that I sold it because this was the only place I was using it, and you know I wanted something that I can use here and when I go out to play or record. Yeah, which is why I ended up getting. I have that one, but I ended up getting another kind of ribbon mic that I can use for talking and I can use for vocalists. Out in the field. So that's again everything that I have to be able to to use in multiple settings. Yeah. So would you say this would adequately supply a condenser ribbon combination of a sound that you would look for? I would be surprised if it didn't. Like without testing, I don't know exactly, but just from hearing the sound, yes, that would be I could add a little bit of that into the mix and get some of that kind of airy presence in the sound without losing the warmth because the ribbon's going to supply that. Awesome. So, awesome. But yeah, if I had to pick one or the other between a ribbon and condenser, the ribbon's always going to win because that's if I only had one type of mic to use. Right. You get the warmth that you want from an acoustic instrument, especially. Because when I was talking to Andy Martin, and this was New Year's Day 2021, so kind of a bit of a while ago, and I'm like, so what microphones do brass or trombones use in studios? And he's like, yeah, I got this Royer 121, it's a ribbon mic, and that's what they use, and that's another very good ribbon manufacturer, the Royer, it's $1,000 microphone. Yep, and that's the price range of a well-made ribbon mic. I mean, you can certainly spend more than that. Ribbon mics that go for $3,000-$4,000. There's some in the AEA. That's the company whose mics that I have a few of. They make a recreation of the So get this wrong. The R44 Ribbon Mic, I think, is what it's called. It's a big kind of horseshoe-looking mic. Yeah. And they make a recreation of that. No, it's basically the same thing. I think just with everything modernized inside, but that's probably $3,000 or $4,000, and that's the one. If you go to a high-end studio, you'll see those. You'll see 3 or 4 of those, which I can show you. This one right here. So that's a $4,000 ribbon mic, but that's the one. Like you'll see these in high-end studios. Either this one or you'll see the RCA, which was the previous version of it. You'll see those, but they look virtually identical. You just, one says AEA, one says RCA. Yeah, I gotcha. But that's what you'll see. So yeah, I mean, a lot of studios, so trumpet players, trombone players, that's that one you'll see often. Because I also took I got a degree in communications at Wisconsin Whitewater. Go Warhawks, by the way. And the audio professor, Brian Lucas, was saying, the ribbons in those microphones are very delicate. They're very, it's a work of art to making that ribbon itself because, it can break very easily, things like that, I don't know. And that used to be more the case with the older ribbons where you have to be really careful about, I think the joke is don't give it to somebody else. Just unless if it's an engineer, it's one thing, but handle the mic yourself. With the new stuff that's made now, they're a lot more durable, And they used to also told that not to lay them flat because over time gravity will kind of weigh the ribbon down and stretch it.
It'll like just do that.
It'll stretch it, but then you'll have to get it. You have to get it replaced at some point anyway. It doesn't last forever. It might take a few years depending on the use, but at some point you have to get a new ribbon put in. But then you get essentially a brand new mic again.
So would the ribbon mic just sound different or just worse?
I haven't experienced it myself yet, but I've asked. It'll just sound different. You won't hear the same thing anymore. You might not hear as many low frequency. I think it's just like you'll be able to tell that something's off, especially if it's a mic you use often. It won't sound the same anymore. But with the new ones, I was talking to one of the people that works for AEA, and he said he was told by the owner of the company they can essentially lay the mic like flat for about 10 years and it should still be fine. That's how durable they're made. So the ribbon shouldn't really stretch.
Right. So I think as you were saying, ribbons can they wear out, they sound different. I mean, couldn't you just go in the equalizer and be like, oh, it's fixed again,
Yeah, I don't think it's something that can be easily fixed. And you don't want to do that anyway, right? You want ideally you want to get everything
to change
right,
as little as possible.
You want to get everything right at the source. And if you do that, then here you can make whatever changes you want, little changes. But if you get it correct from the beginning, then your job's a lot easier.
I see.
So the less kind of processing you do later, the better. I mean, I always, if I'm doing things here, I'll add reverb. I mess with different things just to know what they do.
Right. I was interviewing Miles Blakemore. I don't know if you've seen that interview with Miles.
I don't know if I have.
Professor of trombone at a couple colleges and universities in the Maryland area. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I was interviewing him, and he said when he was recording his album, our first audio engineer he was working with insisted on recording in a really dry, quiet studio, essentially in here, and then adding reverb in post. Halfway into this project, he was like, "Yeah, this is not what I want." So he.
What kind of music was he recording?
Solo unaccompanied pieces, actually, and
then. Was it more classical jazz, something in between? I don't know if you know.
I think all the above. I'm not really sure, honestly. But halfway into his recording project, he started from scratch and switched to someone who would let him record in a hall or something like that. I don't know.
That's for that kind of a thing. You don't. I mean, I've never seen it done in a way where you add reverb later.
Yeah.
Right? You want to get the acoustics of the room. So especially for solo and accompanying trombone, you want to be in a good room with good acoustics, good reverb, and you just record, and that's what you get. You get a good microphone, and you get this, the sound of the trombone and the sound of the room, especially for a kind of solo and accompanying. That is what you want.
Because if you're the only one playing, you want as much of you as possible, and maybe the first engineer might have worked better with other kinds of recording. Maybe it wasn't trombone. Maybe he worked better with the style that he worked with. And I don't know who we're talking about specifically, but maybe he worked better with people, other musicians, and that was just what worked. And it just didn't happen to work with the trombone. Basically, I don't know. Really.
Right, and we as players have to have confidence that we know what we're doing. At a certain point, yes, there are certain situations. Well, I'll obviously take the advice for somebody else, of an engineer, in a certain situation. If they suggest something that makes sense, or maybe something I wasn't aware of. But in a situation like that, it's like, hey, I want to record unaccompanied. I don't want to add reverb after.
Yes.
I want to hear the room. Yeah. And then so you do that. You find a person that'll do that for you, and not somebody that's like, oh, that's not going to sound good. It's like, well, you don't know that. In that situation, and I don't know any classical recordings that were recorded in a dry room. I think everything, even if you do trombone and piano, again, you go in a hall. There's no editing. To my imagination, it wouldn't be very difficult to edit things in that situation anyway. You just play it as is, and that's kind of the sound. Whereas what I'm doing here, if I'm putting it on YouTube, I have to reverb here, and that's recording. Whether backing tracks or things like that. But so this was one of the first recordings that I did with some of the equipment that I had. And this, again, recorded in a hall. I don't think I added any reverb at all because of where it was recorded. Yeah. Right. So what you hear, I think for the most part, I don't remember exactly if I added a touch more, but I don't think I did. I think a lot of what you hear is a lot of the room sound.
Yeah.
mic. That was just one ribbon mic.
Yeah, yeah.
And you can hear the difference in the sound too. Just there's reverb, but less of that airy sound.
Yeah, I got you now.
As I'm learning more, that wasn't the best mic placement for a piano, but I didn't know that at the time. It could have been a little bit lower, more and a little bit more inside.
Or even have a second microphone for the piano, you know.
I think on one of your videos you took something from one of these. I can't remember which one it was from. If you get a good sounding room, you don't need to add anything after that.
Yeah, I got you. On the note of that clip I used in the video, my trombone players and not professional trombone players. It's actually I guess we can move the topic a little bit, no that. But on April 7th, my channel got demonetized because.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, because because YouTube did a manual review and they saw that I had too much reused content.
Gotcha. I guess that would make sense. I don't know how any of that works.
Right.
That would make sense.
But it's basically fair use says, hey, you can use a bit of whatever anyone else makes, but if it's just that, it's not fair or anything like that. But the other thing too is so many other people do this, they make money off of it or they don't, and it's as you get bigger, you're more likely to get someone who essentially looks at your channel and goes this is illegal, you do something about it. So what I'm doing is, yesterday I went through my whole channel and did a whole list of okay, what is reused content and is it going to go on the other channel? It's going to be called the Trombone Clips YouTube channel, and what I'll be doing is I'll be deleting those reused stuff on my main channel, re-uploading it to my Clips channel basically. Because if I'm to get back into the partner program, the YouTube partner program, that's what I'm going to have to do, even if it brings my total view count from almost 4 million down to 600,000.
Still, yeah, you kind of figure out, as challenges come up, it's a challenge to kind of figure out what what the right direction or the next step will be, and
exactly.
You'll figure it out, and that you go from there. It's all a learning experience. I wouldn't, if I get to the point I don't have, tons of subscribers on the channel at the moment, but that's something, not something that's in the front of my mind, but something that eventually, people pop in every week, a few here and there.
Yeah.
But that's also something I haven't spent a lot of time on lately.
Mm-hmm.
I've been kind of with work going back to normal for the most part.
Yeah.
So I'm practicing and working.
Mm-hmm.
The more work I do outside of here, the less I can spend doing anything.
I've previously in a video where I'm just talking to my camera outside my apartment was just I've played for the Naperville Winds, a band out of Naperville. I'm not sure if you've heard of it.
I did see that. I saw something with picture with you on it, and I think maybe Peyton.
Peyton Pugliese, or that
Peyton,
guy.
I know. I was just talking to him the other day.
Really
So,
nice, yeah, because in our whole get together, he was mentioning this is how his last name's pronounced, and I'm it's not Malewicz, it's Malewicz.
Malewicz.
Malewicz. Oh
That's
wow.
Malewicz. He could have gotten it wrong too. It's been a while. It's not a name that's easy to pronounce right away, unless because it's a Polish last name. I'm from Poland. I was born in Poland.
Mm-hmm.
Came here when I was 11, I think.
Yeah.
But it's Malewicz, which is my the teacher that I had in high school. I think the joke is that he didn't pronounce it right for 3 or 4 years. It's kind of funny. I don't remember that at all.
Wow, interesting. Essentially, what I said in that other video I was talking about is I want to essentially shift to more original content because I can't just keep re-uploading stuff forever. I in my last orchestra compilation video, I'm using obscure trauma moments people haven't really typically heard of, and essentially me getting demonetized was essentially saying, hey, we got to do this, and I'm fine, I'll do it. So the last trauma video I made, the Thayer Valve video I made, the Valveless video I also made, all those things where I'm telling a story about maybe how someone became successful and not just talk about it.
So those can stay on, is what you're saying? Those can stay as part of the channel?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
That makes more sense. I thought you were saying the other thing, which didn't make sense. So that makes sense.
Because you can throw if you throw your narrative of and you use it to tell a story that you put together, that's fair game. That's fair game basically. it's just, it can't just be random compilations and you don't do anything else or anything like that. And it's like, even if you have permission, you can't do that according to YouTube, basically. But,
as long as it's you talking about describing it, or
Yeah.
as opposed to just posting a solo. It's like, okay, let's learn this solo. Let's analyze this solo. Let's figure out what's happening here. Maybe things like that would,
Like,
I would imagine, would be
right, because
allowed.
if you posted you playing into that on your channel on iReal, I'm like, yep, we're on the same page. This is fine. YouTube says we can't do that. If you post it first, I can't do the same, basically. But as long as I like, maybe I make a short. If I someone made like a mini documentary about your life coming to America, that sort of stuff, and included that little piece of it, that's fine. That's fine. That's fair game. So essentially, that's what I'm going to be doing. I essentially like went back to square one and said, okay, let's evaluate everything I've done and see what do I do now. First thing I did was I've asked someone, hey, let's make a fancy graphic intro like other people have. And this other guy was like, I like your idea, but I think your logo and channel could use rebranding. And I'm like, sure, let's do it. And he does this, and I'm like, holy crap.
It's got it. I like how it looks like a.
And that's the banner.
Oh wow, that's really cool.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. I like how Leo looks like a counterweight, like a trombone counterweight. I don't know if that was the idea.
Oh, yeah.
That's what. Yeah. That's what my first thought was. You could put that, on literally just get a, made a like a sticky label. If you have a counterweight that's round, which this isn't, so we can kind of put it on there. So that'd be really cool.
I didn't think of that. That's actually a good idea, actually.
Yeah. I don't know what trombone do you play.
I play a Bach 42A that I've been playing since my senior year of high school. Yeah.
Okay, I'm trying to picture what the counterweight would look like. Does it have a counterweight? Because it's a trigger fork, probably.
I don't think.
I don't think it has a counterweight. But the trigger does think
counterweight.
it wouldn't have a counterweight. But you can get one if I'm sure you have a brace where you can stick something. You can get a counterweight made and just slap the logo on there, and then you're good to go.
No,
you're promoting yourself wherever you go.
I can easily figure something out in that regard. But also, another way I was thinking of, like, in that fancy graphic intro that other people are working on, that we're working on, basically, is like the music that's played is the Rimsky-Korsakov, which is public domain, like 5 seconds of that and an arrangement that I put together, like that's what's played. So that when people work on the Rimsky-Korsakov concerto, trombone concerto, which a lot of people play, like people are like, oh yeah, that's the trombone channel, like, and essentially getting that familiarity with, like, oh yeah, I know where that's from, basically.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think maybe we can shift gears and maybe talk about, like, your life growing up and how you got here, basically.
Sure, if you want to go that far back.
Yeah, sure. I guess